You do not fight what you cannot see. For decades, that was the rule. Not written in manuals, not carved into doctrine, but understood by every pilot who ever lifted off into the dark. Night was sanctuary. Night was protection. Night was where bombers became ghosts. Before World War II, darkness was the great equalizer. Radar did not exist in any meaningful battlefield-changing form. Aircraft relied on eyesight, searchlights, and luck. And at night, those things failed. Entire cities could be bombed while defenders stood helpless, listening. Think about that. You hear engines overhead. You hear bombs falling. But you cannot see the enemy. You cannot track them. You cannot stop them. So nations adapted. Germany built its night bombing doctrine around this truth. Japan studied it, refined it, and trusted it. Their planners believed the same thing every air force believed. At night, the sky belongs to the attacker. It felt unbreakable. It felt like a law of nature. But in 1940, one man changed everything. Robert Watson Watt was not a soldier. He was not a pilot, not a general, not a man you would expect to shape the fate of nations. He was a physicist, quiet, analytical, Scottish, born in 1892. But he had one obsession: radio waves. In the early 1930s, long before the war began, Watson Watt began experimenting with a radical idea. What if invisible radio waves could detect objects at a distance? Not by sight, not by sound, but by reflection. Send out a signal, let it bounce off an aircraft. Measure the return. It sounded impossible. Many thought it was, but Watson Watt kept working. In 1935, during a demonstration for the British government, he proved it. A simple system, crude by modern standards, but it worked. An aircraft, invisible to the human eye, revealed itself through radio echoes. That moment changed British defense forever. By the time war broke out in 1939, Britain had begun building something unprecedented: a network, not just a device, a system. Tall steel towers stretched along the coastline. Operators trained to read flickering signals. Command centers coordinated responses. This system would be called Chain Home, and it would become the first true radar defense network in history. Meanwhile, across the world, Japan expanded its empire. By 1941, Japanese forces had swept across Southeast Asia. Their navy dominated the Pacific. Their pilots were experienced, aggressive, and deadly. And like every other power, they believed in the rule. Night was their ally. So when the war expanded into a global conflict, Japan and Germany prepared for night operations with confidence. They had no idea the sky itself had changed, and Watson Watt knew exactly what that meant. Because radar didn't just detect, it revealed. And once the enemy could be seen, they could be hunted. The year is 1940. The Battle of Britain is underway. German bombers cross the English Channel in waves, hundreds of aircraft. But something strange happens. Before the bombers even reach the coastline, British fighters are already waiting. Not scrambling in panic, not searching blindly, waiting because radar has already seen them, miles away, dozens of miles, sometimes over 100 miles out. The chain home stations detect incoming formations. Operators track speed, direction, altitude. Information flows to fighter command. And then orders. Squadrons take off with precision timing. Pilots climb directly into interception paths. No wasted fuel, no blind searching. The Germans notice. At first they dismiss it. Coincidence, lucky guesses. But then it happens again, and again, and again. Bombers intercepted before reaching targets. Fighters appearing exactly where they shouldn't be. It doesn't make sense. From the German perspective, it feels impossible. How do they know? The answer is invisible. Now shift forward. Night falls. Traditionally, this is when the bombers become untouchable. But something else is happening. Britain begins experimenting with airborne radar. Small, compact systems installed inside night fighters. Primitive, heavy, difficult to operate, but revolutionary. Pilots can now see in the dark, not with eyes, but with instruments. Picture this. A British night fighter patrols the sky. No moon, no stars, just blackness. Inside the cockpit, a radar operator watches a small screen. A blip appears, faint, flickering, but real. Contact 5 miles. Closing. The pilot adjusts course. The distance shrinks 4 miles, 3 miles, 2 miles. The tension builds, because one mistake and the target disappears into the void. 1 mile now, they should see something. Nothing, just darkness. But the radar insists. 500 yards, 300 yards, and then a shadow, barely visible. A German bomber, completely unaware. The pilot closes in, fires. The night explodes with tracer rounds, metal tears, fuel ignites. The bomber erupts into flames, gone in seconds. The impossible has happened. The hunter become the hunted in total darkness. And this is just the beginning. As radar technology improves, so does its lethality. By 1943, Allied forces deploy more advanced systems, ground-controlled interception, airborne radar sets like AIMKIV and later models. Now, entire networks coordinate night defense. Operators guide fighters directly to targets. Think about the precision required. You are flying at 20,000 feet. Speed, 250 miles per hour. Visibility, near zero. Your only guide is a voice over the radio. Turn left, 10 degrees, climb, 1,000 feet, target ahead. 2 miles. Every second matters. Every instruction counts. And when it works, it's devastating. German night raids begin to suffer losses, not occasional, consistent, predictable. The confidence they once had begins to crack, because now night is no longer safe. At this point in the war, something extraordinary becomes clear. Radar is not just a tool. It is a force multiplier. It compresses time. It eliminates uncertainty. It turns defense into precision offense. And if you find this kind of forgotten history as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of courage, sacrifice, and genius deserve to be told. And by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. Now shift theaters. The Pacific. Japanese bombers begin facing similar challenges. American forces deploy radar-equipped ships and aircraft. At sea, radar changes everything. Picture a U.S. destroyer in the dark Pacific. No visibility, no warning except radar. A blip appears. Range, 12 miles. Closing fast. Enemy aircraft. The crew goes to action stations. Guns track targets they cannot see. Fire opens based on radar data. Explosions in the sky. Aircraft destroyed before they even reach visual range. Japanese pilots begin reporting something unsettling. They are being engaged before they are detected, before they are seen, before they can attack. From their perspective, it feels supernatural, as if the enemy can see through darkness itself. Because in a way, they can. And then comes the breaking point. Night raids that once guaranteed surprise now end in disaster. Aircraft intercepted mid-flight, bombing runs disrupted, losses mounting. Commanders begin asking questions. How do they know? Why are we being intercepted? Why are ships firing before we arrive? The answer remains hidden. Radar is still a closely guarded secret, but the effects are undeniable. The rule has been broken, and there is no going back. What they didn't know was just how deep the impact would go. Radar didn't just win individual engagements. It reshaped the entire war. In Europe, it helped Britain survive its darkest hour. Without radar, the Battle of Britain could have ended very differently. Fewer interceptions, more successful bombings, potential invasion. But radar changed the equation. It gave Britain time. Time to respond, time to adapt, time to endure. In the Atlantic, radar-equipped aircraft began hunting U-boats. Submarines that once operated with near impunity on the surface at night were suddenly exposed, detected, attacked, destroyed. Convoys that once suffered devastating losses began to survive. In the Pacific, radar turned naval warfare into a new kind of battle. Night engagements, once chaotic and unpredictable, became controlled, directed, deadly. American forces used radar to devastating effect in battles like Guadalcanal. Ships tracked enemies beyond visual range. Guns fired with unseen accuracy. The Japanese, relying on optics and experience, found themselves at a disadvantage, because experience could not compete with technology that removed uncertainty. The true impact wouldn't be fully understood until after the war. Radar had done more than win battles. It had changed how wars were fought. Forever. Robert Watson Watt did not stand on the front lines. He did not fire a weapon. He did not pilot a fighter into the night. but his work saved thousands of lives. Pilots who returned home, cities that survived, convoys that reached their destinations. His legacy lives in every radar system that followed, from air traffic control to weather forecasting to modern defense systems. To this day, the principle remains the same. See the unseen, know before the enemy knows, and act before they can react. Watson Watt was knighted for his contributions, but recognition only tells part of the story, because behind every system were people, operators staring at flickering screens, pilots trusting invisible signals, crews firing into darkness based on faith in technology, young men, 18, 19, 20 years old, fighting a war where the enemy could appear at any moment or be destroyed before they ever knew what hit them. Think about that. Think about the fear, the uncertainty, the moment you realize the rules you trusted no longer apply. That was the moment Japan realized radar made night raids impossible. That was the moment the sky changed forever. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state, and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that Robert Watson Watt and the thousands of radar operators and night fighter crews do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.